Good afternoon and welcome. You are tuned in and listening to Bat Talk with Sharona. I'm your host. My name is Sharona. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. First up on today's show is my friend Mike, Mr. Excalibur on Twitter. We sat down last night and had a long chat about Bernie Sanders, reparations, The Wiz, Khalifa, Amber Rose, Kanye West, Kanye West, Twitter, Twitter Comedy Hour. Interesting discussion on that. We talked about Oscars so white, diversity in Hollywood, and we started a conversation that I'm wanting to have with some guys that I know about uh, movies made by Hollywood, white men in Hollywood, like Blazing Saddles, how black males view those types of movies. Blazing Saddles has a very interesting history. I'm going to be talking about it over the weekend with Greg Greenfield, the husband of my co host, Sonia Greenfield, who was on my show on Wednesday. I'm very excited to chat with him. Mike and I had a conversation about that and a lot more. So it was a great chat with him. And then in my second hour, Jess Root from Revenge of the Birds joins me again. We sat down and did a wrap up of the NFC Championship game. Uh, was Carson Palmer responsible for that loss? What their offseason, what offseason changes there might be? Some interesting comments from Bruce Arians about what they're going to be looking for, and a lot of other things. We talk a little bit about the Super Bowl as well. Very excited to bring you guys that chat. Jess is a great resource for the Arizona Cardinals. If you're not following him, or Revenge of the Birds, you definitely need to do so if you're an NFL fan. Shout out to both of those guys for joining me on today's show. And then in the final word, I'm finally going to get around to talking to you guys about the opportunity that I had to cover the NFC Championship game. I'll share my thoughts on that and give you a rundown on the trip and some other things that are going to be happening for your girl Sharona over the next couple of months. So stay tuned in for that. We'll go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, my chat with my good friend Mike Excalibur on Twitter. So stay tuned in. You are listening to Back Talk with Sharona.
Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger. Work it harder, make it better, do it faster, makes us stronger. More than ever, hour after hour. Work it never over. Work it harder, make it better, do it faster, makes us stronger. More than ever, hour after hour.
Up next, my chat with my friend Mike, Mr. Excalibur on Twitter. So stay tuned in. You're listening to Back Talk with Sharona. Welcome back. As I've been promoting for the past several shows, I'm joined now by one of my Twitter buddies, one of my buddies on the Twitter machine. He hasn't been on my podcast yet, I don't think, although he has joined Vasti and I on our Game Over with Vasti and Sharona podcast. So Mike, Mr. Excalibur on Twitter, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you for having me, Super Sharona. I'm so glad you had me on.
Well, I've been meaning to. This has been something that I've been planning, and I'm glad that we're able to make it happen.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. We have been focusing a lot on sports, and Mike and I may talk some sports. We'll see. We got a lot of other things that we want to talk about, but I've been promising you guys that I was going to talk a lot about diversity and the upcoming presidential election and some other topics that are near and dear to my heart. And so I thought, as I've been thinking about it and preparing for it, I was like, there's no really better person to do this with than Mike, because I know Mike has a lot of strong opinions. He's not afraid to express them. But since it is his first time on my podcast, I'm going to let him tell you guys a little bit about himself and about his podcast.
Oh, thank you. You can find me on Twitter at Excalibur, Excalaba. or you can follow my podcast or show that is on Instinct Radio. It's called The Locker Room, and you can follow our Twitter handle at the number 4HF Advantage. I've been doing sports radio for about 2.5 years, and it is awesome because I get all the backlash from my Twitter friends. I enjoy the slander. I relish in it.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun, and you definitely, depending on what you say and what you do, can get a lot of backlash. We may talk some football or some basketball. Are you a hockey guy? What sports do you watch?
No, I am not a hockey guy. Unfortunately, Atlanta has lost 2 hockey teams. I think that means that I should not be involved.
So you live in Hotlanta. I don't know that. I knew that because you're a Falcons guy. You're a Falcons fan.
Yeah, Atlanta has lost 2 hockey teams, and I just figured it's just not for us. Yeah. But I'm very much into football and basketball.
Of course, the Hawks. Yeah. Are you a big Hawks fan?
Absolutely, huge Hawks fan.
All right, we might talk some NBA. I want to get your thoughts on LeBron and what's going on with him. But let's talk about some other things first. Something that I've been talking about for the last couple of shows, the Oscars so white movement, the lack of diversity in Hollywood. There's a lack of diversity in a lot of areas, but the Oscars is something that we've been talking about here lately. So let's talk a little bit about it. It sort of came about, I suppose, do we credit Jada Pinkett Smith for starting the Oscars So White movement?
No, I don't. We've been screaming every year around the same time about the Oscars and its diversity. So it's not I can remember at least the last 4 to 5 years we've been speaking about its diversity.
Okay.
But Jada Pinkett's a louder voice, so it's being heard a little more.
Okay.
But we've been talking about it for a while now.
I got you. All right. I like her a lot. I think that, their marriage is interesting. Of course, you hear the rumors, and I had the opportunity to talk. I did not know. I watched some, Fresh Prince. I'm not a big television person anyway. I Netflix and chill a lot, and I game a lot when I have free time, which isn't very often. So I was not aware of the beef going back to the Fresh Prince days with Auntie Viv and all of that, and of course now you hear and read about the rumors about their marriage and stuff, and we're not going to get into any of that. I don't. My philosophy is I don't care who you do it with. As long as it's consensual, you can bump boots with anybody. As long as it's, and I say consensual, I shy away from using the term legal because there are a lot of weird laws. I mean, I think Georgia, I know Alabama has some weird sex laws on the books where, you can't, fellatio is punishable, as a felony, which is, and it goes back to the laws against homosexuality and all of that. We're not going to get into any of that. I don't care whether they have an open marriage. If they have an open marriage and that suits them, you go. Do you. I'm all for it,
Absolutely.
But I do find it interesting that, and I think that she's the driving force really in that marriage. And I think Will's kind of along for the ride, so to speak. But, for Will Smith to be involved in this, and I said this on a show last week, I don't know that anybody's benefited from white association more than Will Smith. And I like dude.
Interesting. I will say that I think I never thought about it that way, but you actually have a point there. He's definitely benefited from not from exactly the African American support, but more so from a more universal support than other people have.
I mean, he's the guy who played Ali, and he's in a lot of movies, projects that are financed by white men. Concussion, I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. And I love it. Listen, I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying I find that it's curious to me. I don't think that Will Smith is hurting for food. I mean, he's not out here, holding up a sign saying, we'll work for food. The dude's getting roles. He's going to continue to get roles because he's very popular among the Hollywood elite.
Right, and he doesn't rock the boat, and he hasn't rocked the boat in a long time. If you want to say he has rocked the boat, it's probably the only time in his career is when he did Concussion, which he basically went up against the NFL. And
yeah. But they got sanctioned. I mean, the NFL had its hand in that. They gave certain creative, license to the NFL, and I mean, certainly it's not sanctioned, right? But there's a hand in there, and all this, which is why when I read, these news reports and stuff, oh, this is the NFL's biggest nightmare. The NFL's biggest nightmare was League of Denial, the true story.
Okay.
What was, I mean, that was, the documentary, what it's all based on. That's their nightmare. The league has known this was going to happen, and there's some. They've had a little bit of a hand, not as much as it's certainly not something that they've got a major hand in, but they've definitely had a role there. It's kind of interesting. I haven't seen the movie yet. Have you seen Concussion?
I have not seen Concussion. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people that's twirling a sign outside. I am poor. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Listen, the last time I went to the movies, I went and saw the latest Jurassic Park movie. I haven't been to see Star Wars yet, even though I want to. I work too dang much.
Right.
I work so much, and we're recording this on today's Thursday. My days are all mixed up. I mean, because it's been such a crazy last couple of weeks. Well, it is my time. It is 5:21 Thursday evening, and we're sitting down to record this. After I had an interview. Thank you, by the way, for being patient and waiting for me. I had an interview right before this one. When I get through with you, and we get through with our chat, I'll throw some makeup on and do my Wednesday night show got moved to Thursday night. So I'll do that, and then by the time I get through with all of that, it'll be 9 o'clock, and there's the night shot. So that's that's pretty constant.
Busy.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty constant for me. So
I didn't see Concussion. I will see it, but
yeah.
I haven't watched it yet.
I'll probably see it on Netflix or my family has cable. I might watch it with them or whatever. I do still intend to go see Star Wars on the big screen because I think that's the kind of movie that you should. But I mean, my sister has a huge TV, and with the advent of big screen TVs that you have in your home, my desire to spend the money to go pay for overpriced, poorly cooked popcorn, and I'm not a soda person, so I wouldn't drink,
Right.
There where I used to live, I just moved not too long ago. Where I used to live, there was a theater where you could drink, beer and stuff and eat, and then I would see a movie that way because that was fun, but I can sit at home and watch a movie and drink a beer or glass of wine or whatever, and get my freak on and not have to pay, $30, $40, $50, depending on how many people are with you, right? I mean, that's real world shit.
Yeah, in order to go to the movies, I have to sell half a pound of crack, and I'm just not interested in endangering my community or going to jail. So I just have to save up for it. Have to save up for it and find the time to do it.
Yeah, did you think that Chris Rock should have boycotted the Oscars? And of course,
no.
he's going to host it. Did you think he should have?
No, absolutely not. I always try to live by. I try not to count anyone else's pockets, and we don't
Completely
know.
Agree.
We don't know what Chris Rock needed that check for. He may have really needed this one for something. It is really inconsiderate to ask someone to give up their paycheck for your own movement.
Yeah,
You know, you have to
I
fight that
completely
movement
agree.
for yourself.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I was like that when people were calling for NBA players to protest, some of the racist things that were happening, coming out, Donald Sterling among others. I was like, well, I mean, why, it's always easier to spend someone else's money, and
Right.
and to say, well, I would, well, no, for Chris Rock, and speaking of Hollywood in specific, and Chris Rock in specific. Now, Chris Rock is another guy who gets gigs. He's sort of in with the Hollywood establishment. He's going to get gigs, even though he is
Absolutely.
more controversial than Will Smith. But still, the economic reality for minorities, for the marginalized, for the disenfranchised, is that when you get opportunities, you take them, because those opportunities don't come as often and aren't nearly as lucrative typically as they are for those who are not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chris Rock is he's an accepted African American.
Yeah.
But he's also worked hard for that.
Sure.
And so
I'm not hating on him.
Yeah.
Now, Chris Rock and I disagree on a lot of things. I'm still pissed off at him for his defense of Bill Cosby. But I still like dude. I'm not hating on him.
Yeah, so, we can't always ask even though we may assume that they, we think they make more money, so they'll have more money. We don't know their expenses, their life. You can't ask anybody to turn down a check.
Yeah.
Only thing you can do is ask them to join your movement, but you can't tell them what to do with that movement.
Yeah. Support in the way that you can provide support, and it kind of does. Speaking of LeBron, it does kind of remind me of all the people who were saying he should have spoken out more about Tamir Rice and all of that. Michael Jordan got similar complaints back in the day. He didn't speak out at all. LeBron's far more socially conscious than Michael Jordan ever was. But so it is.
Yeah, I've always said it's okay to be disappointed in maybe a celebrity's or a mainstream person's actions, but you really can't control what they do. You just don't know all the circumstances in their life.
Yeah. No, you can't. And I'll say this too. As much as I disagree, with Chris Rock about more than Bill Cosby, some other things too. Never did get a chance to talk about what he had to say about the economic pay gap in Hollywood for women. I need to add that to my list and go back and talk. But I'll say this: I respect and admire people who are willing to disagree with me and stay true to their self than I do people who pretend to agree with me, yet, in private they're all like, shit, no, I support Bill Cosby. Those women are lying. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Be real with me. And that's really what all you can ask from somebody is to be real with you.
No, totally agree with that.
So I was talking with Ben Troop. Today's Thursday. This was yesterday. To think what day of the week it is. Lord have mercy. We were talking about. I don't know if you had a chance to see this article. Very interesting. They're doing a movie about Michael Jackson over over in England, and his brother Josephine. There's two brothers, the Fiends brothers. Rafe and Joe are both actors over there. Both fantastic, award-winning actors. And Joseph has been hired, is going to portray Michael Jackson in that movie. And we talked about that too. And I'm not. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm completely and utterly outraged, but to me, it is an example of why, and it's not quote unquote Hollywood per se, but it's the entertainment industry. Why the entertainment industry just simply does not get it, and this is why diversity is still very much an issue. They could have easily hired, a minority, even someone mixed to.
Very much so.
True. But no, they're stuck in that we've got to hire a white man to do it.
Oh, totally. It's even though I saw it and it initially shocked me, I did look at the guy. He does look like Michael Jackson. It's it's one of those things, like you said. It's like Hollywood could try to attempt to give a person of color that role, but at the same time, they're just looking to make money, and if you're going to go support it and they have reasons to think that you will go support it, they're going to do whatever they want.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of which, and this is something, I'm so glad Mike's on here because this is something that I've been wanting, and I'm going to discuss this movie with some other people. I'm going to do a podcast next week. It's going to include Sonia Greenfield was on the podcast with me yesterday. We sat down Monday night and did a podcast. Her husband's going to join me, and I'm going to ask him about this too. I forget what night it was. This has probably been about a week or so ago. I was just wasted, not drunk wasted, although I'm sure I was having an adult beverage or two. And I was like, and ordinarily, if I get downtime, I'm gaming or whatever. But, on occasion, this happened last night, on occasion, I'm too tired to do that. I'm just too tired to mentally focus enough to game. And so I was like, I'm going to put a movie on and chill. Not Netflix and chill. I'm going to put a movie on that I hadn't watched in a long time, and it was Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles, okay.
Yeah, and it had been a few years since I'd watched it. And so I pop it in, and, and I don't know. I guess I had forgotten, and it immediately jumps in, right? With the language and it's very much tongue-in-cheek and all of that. But I'm curious. Have you seen the movie?
I saw Blazing Saddles years ago. I'm talking about I had to be a young teenager. I know it's been out for a really long time because I think I was in middle school when I watched it.
All right. Well, I'd like for you to watch it again and come back on and that's really talk about it. Because I'm curious how minorities, black people, particularly black men, feel this movie made it was. In fact, let me hold on a second. I'm going to grab it real quick because it's sitting right here. Let me take a look at it, and I'll tell you guys when it was made and all of that.
I think it was 1974.
Here it is. All right. Hang on. Blazing Saddles, Mel Brooks movie. And let's see if it tells me.
It should be 1974 if I remember correctly.
Could be. I don't know. I can't. Let me turn the light on so I can see. But anyway, I'm kind of curious what you guys do think about movies like that where white people are making liberal use of the N-word. And even though it's meant to highlight racism, does something within you go, wait, dude, or not?
I think in general it makes most people kind of quiver, most black people quiver. For me, it doesn't bother me.
Okay.
I am always under the assumption that everybody on this earth, or I should say everybody in America, has said nigger, nigga, or the N-word at least once in their life.
Okay.
In their head, in the privacy of their own homes, to friends, out in public. I'd rather you say it out in public than you say it in your head while I'm walking down the street. So it doesn't bother me as much.
Well, wouldn't you rather know that someone is racist, sexist, or whatever I'd rather no. I'd rather them be open and honest about it than be a closet racist.
Absolutely. I appreciate someone who's openly prejudiced because at least you're accepting your imperfections and you're letting it be known so that I'm not shocked. So that if I do decide to support you or pursue any kind of relationship or business with you, I know where you stand. It's really bad when you don't know where someone stands, and in their mind and to their friends, they have all kind of prejudiced thoughts about you. I tell my wife all the time that I'm an ignorant chauvinist. Like, I don't know when I'm being a chauvinist person. But I know that I'm being one somewhere deep down inside. And she's always said she appreciates that about me because most people, they know they're being chauvinist and they don't care. And they won't tell you.
You're right. It was made in 1974. And it's interesting because there's a Richard Pryor documentary, and I forget the name of it. I'll have to look that up here in a minute. And it talks about the movie. He helped write the screenplay, and he was supposed to be Bart. He was supposed to
really
to take the star. Yes, but the studio would not approve it. And it ended up going to, and I've got it pulled up. Let me see what this guy's name is. Cleveland Little.
Okay.
Yeah, and he did a fantastic job. And it has some moments of humor that get me to this day. Some of it, and Harvey Korman, who is no longer with us. He was Hedley Lamar. He is funny. Gene Wilder, another funny guy, and Madeline Kahn, who plays the main female character in the movie, is fantastic. She does such a fantastic job. It has moments of brilliance and where it's funny, and you can really see Richard Pryor's hand in some of it. But as I was watching it again, dude, I gotta tell you, I was fucking uncomfortable. I mean, for like the first 15 or 20 minutes, I was like, I guess I didn't remember how bad it was.
Right.
And it's I know that it's designed to make that point, but I was like, man, I just wonder. I gotta ask somebody. I gotta get somebody on my show and help me talk about this, because I wonder how it does get taken, and it's kind of interesting. So you need to rewatch it. We'll revisit that and have a conversation about that. So,
I did tell people when I watched what was that? I don't want to say it wasn't 12 Years a Slave. It was Django.
Yeah.
Of course, that was Quentin Tarantino, and everybody just talked about the gratuitous word use of that word, and it
I didn't make
bother
it.
me.
I made it 10 minutes into that.
Oh wow.
That's all I could do.
It doesn't bother me because, first of all, you're not calling me that. And second of all, again, I just already assumed that everyone has said or verbalized the word. It's just shocking when people hear it. But I've already assumed that everyone said it. So it doesn't bother me as long as it's not directed towards me. Everybody has a little prejudice in them. I just appreciate when you show it to me.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I'd rather somebody show me who they are rather than hiding it from me and pretending to be somebody that they're not, definitely. We're going to talk about Bernie Sanders reparations and the upcoming presidential election here in a minute. But I want to ask you, it's kind of an interesting week on Twitter. Twitter's always got something going on.
Twitter's awesome.
It's free. It's the best entertainment in the world, and it's free. It's like,
I still can't believe it's free. They charging by now.
It's crazy. So, there's always something going on. I'm quite fond of jumping on there saying, what are we fake mad about today? But, So yesterday, there was an interaction think it was yesterday, there was an interaction between Wiz Khalifa and who I call Kanye, but Kanye West. And Twitter was all abuzz about it. Apparently, Wiz had tweeted something about weed, and Ye didn't know what he was talking about. Ye still, Amber still got him all twisted. There ain't no question, but that Amber still has Ye all twisted. Do you agree with that?
I think she definitely still has an impact on him. And I just only think that's because they haven't lived their truth. Like, we don't, clearly there's a lot about their relationship that we don't know and we will never know.
Never know.
So it's going to always be an issue there or some kind of tension.
Yeah. Yeah, she signed a non-disclosure agreement. She is not allowed to really talk about him. But there was an interesting tweet. I sent it to you. You had a chance to take a look at it?
I did look at it.
I want to ask you, and the tweet was, let me pull it up so I'll give credit and quote it verbatim so that I don't misconstrue it. Here we go. It was by Humble TJ, Fire JB. He tweeted out, I've always felt like there were some racial overtones in how Ye used Kim versus how he used Amber, but that could be just me reading into it. And Ye infamously went on a radio station and said that he had to take like 30 showers after being with Amber before he could get with Kim, which was a really shitty thing to say.
It was.
And I mean, for God's sake, Kim Kardashian made a sex tape with Ray J.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a freaking break, dude. So what do you think about it? Do you think that there is?
No, I don't think there's any kind of racial issues. As a matter of fact, I don't even, part of Amber Rose's allure is that on first glance you think she's Caucasian. So I don't really see the racial undertones. However, there's clearly a classism issue.
Yeah.
Between the two.
No, I agree with that completely.
Kanye, who I absolutely love, even in his as he was ranting on Twitter yesterday, I just laughed. I didn't get offended by anything. I just laughed because it was so stupid. You just gotta laugh at it.
Dude is just so washed. I'm sorry. He is so freaking washed. First of all, to be so clueless about what Wiz was talking about, and then and they went through all this stuff, and it was like, well, cool pants, dude, and then he deleted everything, and he was like, I love everybody, and it's like, get over yourself. And I haven't listened to his latest compilation with Kendrick Lamar, who I love, who I think is the greatest. He is that dude now. But the single that he dropped before that sucked badly.
Yeah, it wasn't that good, no, not at all. Yeah, his last one was, I think, something Party in L.A. or No Party in L.A.
I don't know. It was awful.
It was pretty good. That was the one with Kendrick, and it was
Lamar.
pretty good.
Yeah, that one was. Yeah, I don't remember the name of the other one, but Tell the Truth or something like that. Anyway,
here's the thing with Kanye. I appreciate the fact that he kind of made a fool of himself on Twitter, and the reason being is because I think people have to remember he's married. Now, first of all, to look over the whole thing, Wiz Khalifa had been tweeting some little things at Kanye over the past 2 days.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so when Kanye sees a tweet that says KK, who, Wiz Khalifa explains is weed, Kanye goes on defensive. You're not going to talk about my wife. And he jumps out there. And as a married man, I understand that. Logically, I never want to fight. But if you disrespect my wife, I'm probably going to have an illogical reaction, and we're going to go to war, and I'll probably apologize later. So I actually...
I respect that.
I respect Kanye on that. He went to war for his wife, made a complete fool of himself, deleted everything and said, look, I love everybody. Look, I love everybody. She probably texted them later and was like, my bad, I didn't know, I thought you was going to my wife. Like, you have to understand that. That's what happens when you have a wife. It's like, it's time to go to war. But I get it.
Yeah, it was funny. I wanted to get your thoughts on. I agree. I think it's probably more classism than it is racism. But
yeah.
But
it's horrible classism.
But caught up in that is the whole. I mean, Amber Rose. Not just for her association with rappers and other high-profile men. She was a stripper. She's not afraid to show her body. And, that's her thing. Whereas Kim K, basically doing the same thing, except that she has a reality, and quote-unquote reality, TV show. Make that much difference between the two. I mean, seriously.
No, it's not. The only thing is that they're in different tax brackets.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that's different. Kim is from this more wealthy family. Amber has worked herself up from the bottom, and still, even at this successful, more successful part of her life, she still doesn't have nearly the money that Kim K has. It's just the general American theory: you treat the person that makes more money better than you treat the person that doesn't make money.
Yeah, but doesn't that have? And we're getting ready to talk reparations. Doesn't that have? It goes back in a way to. I mean, Kim K's got her reality TV show because she's a white. I mean, she's mixed too, right? I mean, her father was Italian or so. Anyway, but I mean, she fits that white stereotype. Amber does not. And I think that there's a little bit of racism all mixed up in that. Let's go ahead and talk about Bernie Sanders, reparations, upcoming presidential election. You don't have to tell me who you're voting for. It ain't about that. But I'm curious to, if you want to, you can. I don't mind. I don't know who I'm voting for yet. I ain't got one damn clue who I'm going to vote for. It's probably going to be whoever wins the Democratic nomination, simply because the Republicans are fucking awful.
You don't like Donald Trump? I mean,
Donald Trump scares the crap. I think he'll get the Republican nomination, and I'll just go ahead and say it. It would not shock me if this stupid ass country did not elect his dumb ass.
Yeah.
We elected Bush twice, the younger Bush.
Oh, that's very true. Yes.
I mean,
I don't vote. I choose to stay politically neutral, but I do keep up with it.
You don't vote?
No, not at all. I stay politically neutral. There's nothing
you need to exercise your right to vote, dude.
Nah, I have a lot of rights. That's one that I'm cool on. I've just always been a person that nobody that's elected is gonna do anything. Nobody that's I don't like that's gonna get elected is going to do anything. It's all bad.
Okay.
Nobody's gonna change anything.
Yeah.
So I just stay neutral, but I do keep up with everything.
So what do you think about the candidates?
I think Bernie Sanders is very interesting just because he speaks the most. I mean, you can tell that he's full of it. Like, he would get in office and do nothing, but he makes the most outlandish requests that he's going to think about doing.
He would do as much as a Republican Congress would let him do, which won't be much.
Absolutely. Donald Trump is a sideshow who I enjoy watching because that's pure comedy.
He's a modern-day P.T. Barnum.
Yeah, but I'm with you. The scary part is that there's an inkling that it's possible that he could get elected.
Mm-hmm.
When all you should be watching is for the pure entertainment. You remember Ross Perot?
Oh, yes.
Ross Perot, he had his points, but he was pure entertainment. He was out there. He was country. He had the big ears, and He had money and he threw it in your face, and that's all that mattered. He was pure entertainment.
His face plastered on the Mad magazine dude with the funniest shit I've ever seen.
Yes. Yes. But see, for Donald Trump, I have no idea why people are not looking at him the same way I look at him. Which he's the same as Ross Perot. He's just comedy.
Yeah.
Just look at him and laugh.
But he definitely is popular among a certain element in this country, of which there seems to be a large contingent of unhappy, in a lot of ways, prejudiced, hate mongers, people clearly unhappy with their station in life. And it scares me to think what will happen in this country if dude does get elected. Bernie Sanders, though, is being taken to task a little bit by, I talked about this on yesterday's show, by a guy that I respect greatly. I keep saying it. I'm going to say it again. Bucket list thing to get him on the show. Tanisa Coate, come on the show, buddy. Come talk to me. Who has written about reparations. Bernie Sanders, the most progressive, the guy you would, of any of the candidates that you would expect to be on board with it, has come out against it, and Coate has taken him to task over it.
Right.
So, and I had my own thoughts to say about what he wrote, and my thoughts on reparations. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still very much in let me think about this mode. I had some brief thoughts about it yesterday, but I want to ask you, Mike, what do you think about reparations?
Reparations in general, I think it's old. I mean, it's not like the United States has never paid it. We've paid it several times. Two of them were pretty big. I think once we paid, I don't know, did we help pay for the Jewish community? I don't remember.
That was Germany paid
a
large it was the first time, if I remember correctly, the first time a government had ever paid reparations for war crimes.
Okay. So we definitely paid the Asian community specifically, specifically those of the Korean community who we wrongfully picked them out thinking they were Chinese. And then we paid it out to the island, the Bikini Island, for basically just testing on their island, ruining it, and telling them they can go back. And, it's still to this day, some of the parts are uninhabitable.
Yeah.
So I'm saying all that to say it's not as though the United States has never paid it. This is your big blemish, America. This slavery. It's one of your biggest blemishes. And reparations is old. However, I don't think that the type of reparations that most people feel, which is give us all our money as individuals, that's not going to work. And that won't help none of us. It really won't.
Why don't you think so? Why do you think it won't help?
Well, giving us all money as individuals, well, to be honest, I think that if America would give a reparations, it would be smart to give everybody money as individuals, because black people have some of the most powerful spending money or spending power in America. Just give them cash and they're going to give it back to you.
Yeah.
It's just the truth. It's the ugly truth of us.
Yeah.
But there's so many other things that have been impacted by slavery that putting that money together and getting the resources that we need to try to even out the playing field is more important. For example, we need better schooling, and we don't need to pay a lot for schooling. Not at all. People always bring up to me, you got the HBCUs. I live in Atlanta. There are a lot of them in Atlanta. They are all expensive.
That's where Bernie is. Bernie is like, first of all, I could never get reparations to pass, but I could get, his platform is very much grounded on progressive movements like education, improving those types of things.
Right. And while I agree with him because I understand why he's doing that, he's on a platform of give it to everybody. But if you give it to everybody, the people who are already ahead of us because of slavery will continue to be ahead of us, even though we will all move forward. We're not going to all start on one platform and then everybody's going to get a chance to succeed.
I asked Sonia this question. I believe it was Sonia. As a black male, as someone who I feel was never talked about it, I feel like it's a given that you've experienced racism in your lifetime.
Yeah.
As someone uniquely situated to comment on this, how can America go about, putting reparations aside? How can we come together as a country? Do you ever think that we're going to be an integrated society?
No, absolutely not. No, because this society.
So what's the end point for us? What should we be working toward?
An end to classism. That's what's gonna kill it. Because in my opinion, I've always said, and as ignorant as this may sound, deeply speaking, if poor white people and poor black people and poor Latinos, not even that, if blacks and Latinos and poor white people realize that the upper echelon don't care about none of us, it would completely screw the system up.
It would. It would tough them up bad.
Then we will be like, whoa, racism doesn't really exist. It's really classism that's screwing this country.
But the reason why we can't is because poor whites are, as a class, one of the most racist.
Yes, and they institute that so that, there's a divide there between the people that they need to join forces with. I always said that with women. I always say the women's movement should never go against any of the other movements, such as maybe the Black Rights Movement, or even though I have my own qualms with it, the homosexual community. All of them need to be together because we're all getting screwed.
All disenfranchised, all marginalized people should stick together. Listen, I dated somebody for a pretty good while, and his best friend hated me for a good number of years because in one of our first conversations, I said that I didn't understand why black men did not understand, did not associate, did not appreciate the sexism and the misogyny that women experience. And I told him this was when Barack Obama was running for the Democratic nomination against Hillary Clinton. And I said, Barack Obama, I told him, listen, and this might have even been before that. I said, listen, a black male will be president in this country before a woman will be. And he called me all sorts of names and told me I was crazy and said no way that Hillary or a white woman would be elected president before a black male ever was. And when Barack Obama was elected president, he called me. We hadn't really spoken, and I wasn't dating. His best friend and I were still friends. We weren't dating by that point, but he called me and apologized to me.
Yeah.
But I would never have understood, and there's a lot of black men that think that way.
Because here's the problem with victimhood, and then I'll go back to exactly the point. Victimhood brings attention. So we don't want to share that attention with anybody else.
Right. That makes sense.
Because we're victims and you're victims and you're victims now, I need my attention.
Okay.
And you don't need yours. And I think when you get into that, you just miss the whole point that there may be a common denominator of people that are screwing you all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think with classism is like. We talk about reparations and all that. Like, I totally agree, but it will still be divisive because there's always going to be classism. And the moment that everybody turns around and looks and sees classism is a big issue in this country, that all the money and all the rules and regulations are made by 3% of the entire world, oh, then everything will change.
Yeah.
But we're just going to keep arguing about racism, and it's going to be battled between the small groups.
Yeah.
And the big group is going to sit at the top and just keep laughing.
Yeah. I completely agree. Mike, it's been so much fun chatting. I want you to go watch, not tonight, soon. I want you to sit down and watch Blazing Saddles. You're going to have to come back on here. We're going to have to talk about Donald Trump some more about Bernie Sanders and reparations and some of these other topics. It's gone by so fast. It's been fun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's always great to talk to Sharona. Sharona, I've always said that you are one of my most beloved people in this industry.
I feel the same way.
You challenge the status quo, and you're not afraid to share your knowledge and wisdom and your strong opinions with everybody, and I appreciate that because not everybody has that invested into their lives. So I always thank you for that.
Well, we're definitely kindred spirits that way, aren't we?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So, tell everybody out there again where they can find you.
Again, you can follow me at Excalibur on Twitter. That's at EXCALABA. And again, at the number 4 HF Advantage. That is my sports media company where I talk just about as much trash as Sharona.
Yeah, and you definitely need to come back on because we didn't get around to LeBron and some of these other things. I want to talk some basketball with you.
Absolutely, we got to do it.
All right, cool. Have a great night.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
That's it for hour one of That Talk with Sharona. It was such a great pleasure to sit down with my friend Mike at Excalibur on Twitter and have that conversation. We didn't get a chance to talk as long as I really wanted to. That was by design. We sat down last night, Thursday night, to have that conversation. I also had just finished my chat with Jess Root. Your girl was tired. I still had one more show to get through. It's been a whirlwind past couple of weeks with the possibility of covering and the ultimate ability to cover the NFC Championship game. I'll be talking to you guys about that in the final word with Sharona. But I hope Mike will come back. It was so much fun chatting with him. I had been looking forward to it Very interesting thoughts from him. Very much looking forward to my chat with, as I mentioned, with Sonia Greenfield's husband, Greg Greenfield, over the weekend. We'll talk about Blazing Saddles as well, some of these other topics, and gaming. You guys know gaming is near and dear to my heart. I also have a chance to sit down with Jason Hirschhorn, who covers the Green Bay Packers. I've been wanting to talk some Packers. You guys know I'm a big Packers fan. Mike McCarthy with some interesting thoughts about Ted Thompson and then his health situation, not coaching the Pro Bowl. Winston Moss instead, a guy that I had been mentioning as a possible head coaching candidate for several years now, is going to coach that game. That might be the only reason why Sharona tunes into that game, to be quite honest. But up next, hour 2 of Bat Talk with Sharona, my conversation with Jess Root. That was another rather quick conversation. It's about 30 minutes long. Again, by design. I just exhausted. I didn't want to do a 2.5, 3-hour show today. We did one of those on Wednesday. I wanted to keep it down to 2 hours. Next week, we will be having a big Super Bowl preview show next Friday. So stay tuned in for that. I'm going to sit down with our Denver Broncos correspondent, Jennifer Eakins, as well as my girl Vashti Hurt. She covers the Carolina Panthers. We'll do a Super Bowl preview for you guys. We'll be bringing that to you on our Super Bowl preview show on Friday. That will be a long show. So we'll go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, my chat with Jess Root of Revenge of the Birds. And then in the final segment, the final word with Sharona, a little chat about my opportunity to cover the NFC Championship game. What's next for Sharona? What's next for Bat Talk? So we'll take a quick break. Stay tuned in. You're listening to Bat Talk with Sharona. Up next, my chat with Jess Root of Revenge of the Birds, a great SB Nation website devoted to the Arizona Cardinals. You're listening to Bat Talk with Sharona, so stay tuned in.
All right, welcome back. As promised, I'm joined by Jess Root again from Revenge of the Birds, the great SB Nation Arizona Cardinals website. Jess, I'm just so sorry about that game. I'm still perplexed. Help us make sense of it.
Well, I don't know exactly what to think of it all. It took me a few days to finally just accept what exactly had happened. But it comes down to this: the Cardinals played as poorly as they could have, and Carolina played as well as they could have.
Yeah.
It was kind of the perfect storm. Carolina played really well, and then the Cardinals it's like they weren't prepared for the intensity that Carolina was going to bring. And they talked about it all the previous week about they have to start well. It's that first quarter that's going to set the tone, and that's exactly what happened. Because Carolina plays really well. They play really confidently when they're ahead early. Yeah. And then we had there was a turning point in the game. and it was when the Cardinals scored their first touchdown. They got a stop, and then you kind of felt, okay, the Cardinals tend to, especially Carson Palmer has shown even he gets up a little bit. He's a little too amped up at the start of games, or something, and the ball sails on him, and he doesn't just not quite as good. Then he settles down. He never settled down. Yeah. On that punt where Patrick Peterson raced down the sideline and was trying to make a play, and it wasn't a dumb thing to do. He just didn't secure the ball, muffed ball. Then after that, the muffed punt really kind of turned things around.
I completely
and just kind
agree.
Of everything after that. And then after that, when Peterson made the interception, took it way down deep, and then Carson Palmer threw the interception. It was at that point done, game over. There wasn't any chance after that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I thought at that point, you're exactly right. Arizona had scored. They got the defense got a 3-and-out. I thought momentum is finally starting to shift. I don't know that I agree that Patrick Peterson didn't make it done. When I was watching him, I had the fortunate occurrence to be able to cover that game, and I'm sitting in the press box, and I'm watching it. It's literally unfolding right in front of me because of where I was sitting in the press box and in relation to the field. And I was like, what is he doing? And about that point, the ball, because he was going so fast, and I was like, there's no way he's going to be able to field that. And but regardless, it was just a situation that it was really, Arizona wasn't playing that well. It was very difficult for them to recover from it.
Yeah, and as we've seen with a couple other teams, and I've heard it compared to a couple of people. A guy that I share my podcast with, he's my co-host. He compared, really, if you look at Arizona's team this year and Carolina's team, and compared it very, very similarly to the Seahawks-Broncos Super Bowl, where you had a very prolific offense that just ended up getting obliterated by a very physical defense. They just never could. And even that Super Bowl, there was a moment. I mean, they had the safety early. They had, but it looked like there was about a drive where it looked like the Broncos might come back, and then they had a turnover, and that really just turned the tides completely. And maybe that's the thing moving forward is maybe the Cardinals will make some similar moves to, for lack of a better phrase, Palmer-proof the team like the Broncos did with the Broncos did. They basically made it Manning-proof on this trip. And that's how you end up with Peyton Manning going for his second ring in what is by far the worst year of his career.
Yeah. I want to ask you about Carson Palmer. I wrote about the game, and as much as how much I respect Carson Palmer and really appreciate what he was able to do this season, and I love Bruce Arians, Uncle Bruce. I think I made Uncle Bruce mad. As much as I like Carson Palmer, and as much as I hated to do it, I put the majority of the loss squarely on him. What are we to make of this, of all the indications that maybe not, his finger had not healed? And give us your thoughts on his performance.
Well, he played poorly. I mean, that comes down to it. Now, and you have to put the line. That's kind of how the Cardinal season was going to go. Was going to go based on how Carson Palmer went. So either he was going to be great and they were going to be great, or he was going to play less than great and they were going to be less than great. That's how it was all season. So he deserves all of the blame that he's getting. Now, if you look at the season he had, I don't completely buy into the narrative where he is a playoff choker. And that's simply because I mean, obviously there is something there mentally when it comes to big games that he has a hard time settling down early. With the exception this year of in Seattle, because we saw it against Cincinnati, he was erratic early, then settled down. We saw it against Green Bay. He was erratic early, and he settled down. Against Seattle in Week 17, he was erratic, and then they pulled it, so he never had a chance to settle down. And against Carolina, he just never settled down. So it was a number of things. I don't, like I said, I'm not completely buying into the notion he's just a playoff failure, like he's just something mentally, because he just hasn't had the experience. I mean, that was I mean, aside for 2 plays in 2005, he had the 2009 playoffs, one game, and now 2 years. So it's not. I don't consider that enough of a reputation.
I don't either.
He's just not played well. So obviously he's not a big game quarterback. He steps up, but it was kind of a number of things. Palmer's year, he kind of played like Palmer does. But if you look at the first half, he played the way Palmer has played most of his career. He's one whose risk takes, and this year, what really made his year special is he put in a lot of preparation, so he did a lot himself, but there were a lot of things that went well. He was healthy. They had protection. He's comfortable in the offense, and then he had the offensive line that protected him better this year. However, we have a number of things working against him. He's very, very good when he can set his feet. He's very good under optimal conditions, and that's when you see elite play from him. When it's anything less than optimal, you see a much different Carson Palmer. And in this case, there's a number of things. One, I don't think the finger was a big thing as to how he threw the ball, but it clearly wasn't 100%. The fact that he's staying home for the Pro Bowl is another one. I honestly believe that dislocated is not actually the term that probably is the correct. I think he probably broke his finger and has been playing through it. I wouldn't be surprised to have that come out at some point.
Yeah,
you've got number two. You've got a defense that couldn't let him set his, and then he was hyped up for it. So he knows Carolina's the top. They consider that they're the best defense in the league. They're the best defense in the league, and so he never got to settle down. 3, his wife was 38 weeks. As of Sunday, 38 weeks pregnant, and he's across the country. So that's something no one talks about, and you don't want to say, well, it's because of that. But it's just a number of little factors, and then it just fell apart. And essentially, you had the 2 early turnovers, and then after that, it didn't matter because after that, he was trying to make plays, and that's what Palmer does. So he's trying to get the ball down the field, and he just not. He's making dumb throws. He's making ill-advised throws, or just because he's trying to do too much.
Yeah, he was. He was not seeing the field all that well at all. He was under pressure a lot. What is your assessment of how the offensive line played in that game?
Offensive line didn't play well. They were completely dominated, especially the right side of the line was dominated by that Carolina line. And it made things worse because Carson was feeling pressure that wasn't there. There were times when he was feeling pressure that wasn't there, and he wasn't aware when the pressure was getting. That leading to those fumbles, leading to the one interception in the end zone that was because his arm got tipped just a little bit.
Are you still with me?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and and it was a surprise to me. I knew that Carolina's defense was good. I've watched them all year, but I have watched the Cardinals too, and I thought their offensive line was better than they played in that game. Yeah,
it's like they were almost as if they believed that because really that Week 17 game, it's like they lost their mojo completely because they were just walking over teams. They were on a perfect roll, and the train left the track, and they never quite found it. And Carolina came out so intense, so physical, and because if you look across the board, name me 3 players that played well. I can name you 3 players that played well. And if you think about it, of all the big names on the Cardinals, every single one failed. Carson Palmer played poorly. Larry Fitzgerald dropped 2 passes.
Patrick Peterson was
killed. Patrick Peterson, who was blanketing receivers all year, was made look silly like Ted Ginn a few times. And Ted Ginn was our 4th best receiver last year. Calais Campbell was invisible. We had 3 guys that really stood out. David Johnson was impressive. J.J. Nelson stood out. And the punter, Drew Butler. Goodness. That's it. That's literally the only guys who played well.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I did an article the day of the game, right before the game. I posted it right before the game. I filed it right before the game started with my keys to the game. And David Johnson was my key for the Carolina Panthers. I said they had to stop him. And he was as good as I expected him to be. He's a very exciting player. I don't want to jump a little bit ahead, but I do want to ask you, since we're talking about him, Bruce Arians had some interesting comments today or yesterday, I believe it was, this week, talking about off-season needs and what they were going to look for. He said that they were going to look for they wanted another David Johnson, which is completely understandable. He's absolutely fantastic. But what does that say about Chris Johnson and Andre Ellington?
Well, basically what it is, we've got 1 year left on Andre Ellington on his contract, and I think the coaching staff has sort of resigned themselves to believe that he can't stay healthy. When he's healthy and able to practice, he's good. But they want someone with that skill set. So they want someone, which kind of changes how Bruce Arians has looked at things. They want someone who is a dynamic runner, who can run inside and out, who's fast. Number two, that can pass protect, and now number three, that can be a threat in the passing game. Andre Ellington's going to be back. Was going to be back next year. They would like to find someone else, especially since they're both relatively young. David Johnson's young. You never can really want to count on them as for certain, because that's what they did with Andre Ellington in year 2, and it was disappointing. Chris Johnson, I think it comes down to what he wants. How much money does his? I mean, he played really well for the first half of the season. So is he going to be looking for another 2-3 year deal? Is he looking to be a bulk carrier, someone who gets a significant amount of carries, or is he willing to continue his career, be a role player, and share carries? Because the Cardinals certainly could use his veteran presence in the locker room. I thought that was one of the more underrated things that I didn't know how good he was going to be, but because of the type of career he's had, he has the respect of the locker room. He knows how to prepare. He's very good at preparation. And I believe that they're going to need to bring someone in to do that as it is, if they let him go. So if he's willing to stick around for, a little more than the league minimum for veteran, and to be a role player, there's a place for him. Otherwise, I don't think there will be.
He's not going to get a Jets deal. I think that everyone, except maybe Chris Johnson, understands that. And I wonder, too, what are his expectations? You mentioned Larry Fitzgerald. By comparison, and in all fairness, David Johnson was getting a lot of short underneath passes, but he was targeted 9 times in the passing game, caught every single thing that was thrown his way. Larry Fitzgerald targeted 7 times, ended up with 4 catches for 30 yards. John Brown was targeted 8 times. He only had 2 receptions. So, and some of that was, Carson Palmer not throwing the ball that well, and some of it was how fantastic the Carolina defense is. But the passing game, from my perspective, was a huge disappointment.
Yes, it was. I mean, name something that happened in the game and it was disappointing. They other than David Johnson, but even then it took a little bit to get him going, but they couldn't stay with the run after that because they fell behind so badly. The passing game was bad. The blocking was bad. They got beat on the defensive side of the ball. There was no pass rush. The secondary, which has been the strength of this team all season, the entire secondary played very poorly.
J.J. Nelson's interesting. I was looking at his stats on the season, the regular season. He had 11 receptions for out of 27 targets for 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. Very promising young player. Or do you expect that they'll get him involved a lot more next year?
I think so. But, I mean, he was a surprise to me, a complete surprise to me as this year. Because if you look at his last year at Alabama, at UAB, I mean, he had, 35 catches in his last year there. When they drafted him, I said, oh, there's the returner. And then he kind of showed up a little bit on offense. He flashed a little bit. I don't know how much more he will get involved this next year because you've still got Floyd and Brown. He'll probably be their number 4 receiver, so he'll get some limited action. But moving forward, you might see him turn into their number 3 a year after that. He's still got, he's still got to put on a little meat. He's barely 160 pounds. And if he gets hit, he might die. I mean, really. He might die if he gets hit hard.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about free agents. Since we're talking about, we've already broached that subject. And another guy that I had written about in my post-game wrap-up. Tony Jefferson, really, for an undrafted free agent, what a fantastic story. And I'm kind of surprised that that Arizona hasn't locked him up already. What's the status on him? Surely they'll make an offer and try to keep him.
Well, they don't really have to. He's a restricted free agent.
Okay.
So they've got a control, and I imagine if I had to predict what they're going to do with him, they're going to put a second round tender on him, which will pay him about $2.5 million this next year. And they'll, if another team decides they want to sign him to a deal, they'll get a second round pick for him. But after that, we'll see beyond that. They haven't had to because they've already had his rights under control these first three seasons under, league minimum. Next year, they still can control him for another year. So there's really no need to do it, especially, they're going to lock up Tyrann Mathieu long term.
Yeah.
And then what is going to be of that other safety position? Are they going to put Dalen Buchanan back deep again, or are they going to keep him at linebacker full time, or is he going to do the kind of the Charles Woodson type thing where he starts off at safety and base and he plays in the box as their dime linebacker as he did last year? So it's kind of interesting. Jefferson probably is starting caliber for most teams, for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
But with the amount of safeties, especially since they have Rashad Johnson as a free agent, they've got Gerard Powers as a free agent. The one constant there is I don't think they even need to lock him up long term. They let him play out, have next year play out, and see how things go, and maybe they bring him back after that. Or Arians already said they wanted to add a guy at corner, a guy at safety with length and speed.
Yeah, so for some reason I was thinking he was an unrestricted free agent, but he is restricted. That's that is good. The second round is pretty steep for a guy that they kind of picked up off the street and he gave an opportunity. But they've done really well scouting and bringing in young defensive backs. That's one of the strengths of their scouting department, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Steve Keim, his background is scouting, and so this is one of those things. They've been really good about getting contributions later in the draft. The first, second round has been kind of a question mark over the first couple of years, and it hasn't hurt them because they've had good talent on the team. We've still yet to get anything of any sort of importance out of Jonathan Cooper or Troy Nicholas.
Yeah.
And now DJ Humphries, their left pick last year, was essentially drafted as a redshirt. They're going to be counting on Jonathan Cooper and DJ Humphries moving forward, as it would surprise me if either Bobby Massey or Ted Larson returns next season.
Oh, yeah. Well, what is the deal with Jonathan Cooper? I know he had the injury the first season. What's going on with him?
Well, he's bordering on bust status, and it's more between. It's in. It's between his ears. The physical. Yeah. The leg injury was significant. He'd never suffered any sort of injury like that before.
Yeah.
When he came back last year, he was still tentative. He was still on the ground. He wasn't being explosive. That finally kind of came around the last half of last year in practice. And so he wasn't good. You see the intensity on the field when he played last year. You see him run around, getting to the second level, but he just wouldn't hit people. And even that happened this year. He's smart, but in the back of his head, he's still worrying about things. He's still thinking about things instead of just playing. So you'd see him get to the second level because he moves extremely well, but then just whiff. He needs to get a little stronger, and he needs to get a little more intense when he's on the field.
It's kind of interesting because Jonathan Cooper and Chance Warmack were widely regarded as the top offensive guards in that draft. And another guy that I was really high on, Larry Warford out of Kentucky, has been the best. I think he was drafted in the third round by the Lions. He's been
something like this. So Warford and even Kyle Long as well were both lesser talented and have been very, very good.
Very good, quite excellent. Kind of interesting. But your offensive line is a position that you're seeing guys come out of college. Not all that. It is definitely a position that they're not developing as well at the collegiate level as you used to see.
No, especially at tackle. At tackle, you almost never, even the top prospects anymore who come, they struggle. Even you'll have a guy at left tackle. You see it almost always. They start at right tackle, and take their lumps for a little bit. It seems to be the case anymore. And that's a result of the college offenses going more spread, less on the coverages, and there's a lot of reasons for that because they're going faster rather than the physicality.
Yeah, it is rather interesting. What other off-season changes do you expect?
Well, I don't expect anything in terms of coaching staff unless somebody gets hired somewhere else. I don't foresee that happening. On the offensive side of the ball, I don't see a whole lot happening. I don't know if Chris Johnson will return, but in terms of the main contributors on offense, the receiver is going to be pretty set. Jermaine Gresham, I don't know what his plans are, but they have Darren Fells, they have Troy Nicholas, they've got Gerald Christian, who they drafted the 7th round last year. They love his physicality, but he's on injured reserve all year.
Right.
Offensive line, you're going to see wholesale changes.
Yeah.
You've got Jared Hilder and Mike Upati, they're set. At center, right guard, and right tackle, we're likely to see changes. I do not foresee them bringing Lyle Semling back. They're going to, DJ Humphries is going to be expected. They're expecting him to be the starter next year. They're going to expect Jonathan Cooper to be the starter next year at right guard. A.Q. Shipley, he's an able center. We'll see what happens with him, but I expect them to bring in not a top level, but a mid to like journeyman type swing tackle and interior lineman to push both Humphries and Cooper, because there's one thing the Cardinals have been very keen on, and except for when it came down to Dre Ellington, they expect their young players in year 2, year 3, but they'll bring someone in just in case because they don't want to necessarily count on them and have it be boom or bust.
Yeah.
The defensive side of the ball is going to be interesting because the number one priority, it seems to be this offseason, is going to be the pass rush.
Yeah, I saw Brisarian's comments on that. I was very curious.
I don't know what their plans are with Alex Okafor. Obviously, they're disappointed in whatever thing that happened to him that caused to be on the NFI list. Dwight Freeney, who knows?
Yeah.
But other than that, they don't have anyone. They like what Marcus Golden brings. I don't know if I still don't think he's a premier pass rusher, and so they need to add to that.
Yeah.
On the defensive line, I think they're going to stay more or less the same. I'm interested to see what they plan on doing inside, if they plan on continuing to have Bayonne there, whether they draft someone, whether they bring someone in. And the secondary could look very different. Patrick Peterson is locked in. Tyrann Matthews locked in, well, at least once he's healthy. Justin Bethel's around for 3 more seasons. But Gerard Powers, Rashad Johnson, and Tony Jefferson all can hit the market. Jefferson likely is staying. And based on what Arians was saying, length and speed, that could signal where Powers and Johnson will be let to go somewhere else. Now, Johnson,
I really like Rashad Johnson. I would be he will get a ton of interest.
He'll get paid somewhere. He should, because
he
is he's very smart. He's put up some big numbers. He should get paid.
Yeah.
And when he hit free agency 3 years ago, he signed a really, really team friendly deal. I think it was like $4 or $5 million over 3 years. And he should get paid. And I don't know if the Cardinals are going to, especially when they're going to be, they've already committed a boatload of money to Patrick. They're going to commit a boatload of money to Tyrann. Can you have a boatload of money somewhere else or are they going to move on and okay, we're going to move Dayon back. We're going to move Dayon back. We're going to keep Tony in and bring in another guy and then have someone else come in to play linebacker.
Yeah, it's going to bear watching. And, there are a lot of teams out there who could use help in their secondary. And I agree. He's worth every penny that he gets. And I hope that he gets a great deal wherever he ends up. I want to get your thoughts on the Super Bowl before I let you get out of here. I'm excited about this. Listen, I think you and I talked about it. I was one of the ones who wasn't giving Denver much of a chance. And, boy, did they surprise me. I thought that they played a great game. But I just don't know that anybody can stop Carolina.
And I'm interested, Nick, as a fan. I'm a big Peyton Manning fan and would love to see him get ring number 2 because, great quarterbacks with one ring are like, yeah, but two rings really puts them into, oh my goodness, yes, they're really good. And there's nothing, if he doesn't, it shouldn't take away anything from his career. But in terms of legacy, you look at a guy and you've got two rings. I want Denver to win. I like Cam Newton, but I want Denver to go out on top. But you look at that like, I didn't think they had a chance against the Patriots, honestly. Yeah. And so I'm left doubting, well, wait, how good is their defense? Can they stop Cam Newton? I mean, because they have the elite pass rush. They do have the cover guys. My thing with when it comes to this matchup is I don't think the Denver offense is any match for that defense, especially since they aren't able to push the ball down the field. I mean, they can't do that with Peyton Manning. They really can't do that. They can run the ball, but Carolina stops the run. And
the thing that does help them is Thomas Davis will probably play, but how effective is he going to be with his injury? And they've got a couple of they suffered some rather key injuries in your game, and so that does help.
Roman Harper. Well, behind Davis, I mean, they still got Jack Thompson, so that linebacker core you don't lose very much, and so I want Denver to win, and I'm not going to be surprised if the Broncos win because they already proved me wrong. I didn't think there was a chance they were going to beat Denver, beat New England, but I fully expect Carolina because we've now seen a body of work. It wasn't just a weak schedule. They have just put a beat down on pretty much anyone.
Yeah.
And they're playing like the 2013 Seahawks team right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. They definitely are. Denver's defense is just so fantastic, and as good as the Seahawks defense is, and Arizona and some other teams that Carolina has faced, they have not faced a defense like Denver's yet. And I'm rather curious to see what they do with Cam Newton, how they handle, his particular skill set, which is very unique and so fantastic. It's going to be a great game. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a good one. I mean, there's bitterness inside me because the Cardinals aren't there, but at the same time, I can watch it and not really stress out because the last time the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl, it was really hard to watch, honestly.
I remember that. I remember that game. I remember it so well. You want to give me a prediction?
I'm not quite ready for prediction, but if I had to predict today, I'm going to say that the Panthers are going to come away with I think it's going to be a 24 to 8. Well, I'm going to say 24-20 game. It'll be within a possession, and I think Carolina takes that.
Yeah, great stuff, Jess. It was short notice. Thanks again for joining me. I so appreciate it.
No problem. I appreciate you having me on.
All right. Good night.
All right.
Are you willing to sacrifice your life?
Shout out to Jess Root of Revenge of the Birds, a great SB Nation website devoted to your Arizona Cardinals, for joining me in that first segment. Up next, the final word with Sharona. I finally get a chance to sit down and talk to you guys about the wonderful opportunity that I had to cover the NFC Championship game for Pro Player Insiders. As always, shout out to Melissa Mailer, who is the owner, proprietor of that website, who's been so good to me, such a wonderful person, and a great businesswoman. I am so proud to be associated with Pro Player Insiders. We'll take another quick break. Up next, the final word with Sharona, so stay tuned in. You are listening to Bat Talk with Sharona, and I am your host. Hey, my name is Sharona. Thanks for tuning in. shout out to my friend Mike at Excalibur on Twitter for joining me in hour one. That was a great chat with him last night on a lot of different topics. The movie Blazing Saddles. Can't wait to talk to Greg Greenfield about that one, as well as gaming and some other things over the weekend. Also, great information from Mike on his thoughts about reparations, Bernie Sanders, his political thoughts. We delved into the Khan Me versus Wiz Khalifa Twitter beef from this week that drew in Amber Rose. Great moments in Twitter history. Great conversation with him. And also to Jess Root of Revenge of the Birds. Again, a wonderful SB Nation website devoted to the Arizona Cardinals. Great information always from Jess on the Cardinals. And we also talked about the Super Bowl a little bit of a Super Bowl preview. This is the final word with Sharona. It is my opportunity to share my thoughts on topics that are near and dear to my heart. On Wednesday, I started my conversation about reparations. Again, Mike and I had a discussion about that. We'll continue to have discussions on that topic as well as the upcoming presidential elections. But this is my opportunity to talk to you guys about the wonderful opportunity that I was given to cover the NFC Championship games. Dreams do come true. That was definitely a dream come true. Maybe someday the Super Bowl. I will not be at the Super Bowl this year. We'll see, what happens in the future. I will, however, once again be covering the NFL draft. So I'll be in Chicago at the end of April for that event. Very excited about that. I was hoping to go to Senior Bowl. It just didn't work out. It was very hard for me to turn around for my trip to North Carolina and plan to go to Mobile. Maybe be able to do that next year. That's a bucket list thing. I'm very much looking forward to an opportunity to do that. So the NFC Championship game. About 2 weeks before the game, I got the call asking if I wanted to cover it. And, of course, I said, yeah, who wouldn't, right? That's such a great opportunity. But I didn't get all that hype. I didn't get all that excited. I mean, I was excited, but you never know how these things are going to go down. I've never had any trouble, really. But, again, you never know how these things are going to go down. So I won't say that I was holding my breath, but I was waiting, to get the final word. Speaking of the final word, to get the approval of my credentials to be able to cover that game. So, I got online and looked at airfare and checked the distance. And as it turned out, Charlotte's not that far from where I live, and it just made a lot more sense to drive, or at least at the time that I looked, it made a lot more sense to drive because it is between 5 and 6 hours if the weather is good, which leads me to the actual week before the NFC Championship game. So I was supposed to know by Tuesday. As of Tuesday evening, I had not been given final approval yet, and so I was like, well, and by this time they're already talking about this superstorm, the storm that's going to hit the eastern seaboard, and North Carolina, Charlotte's in its sights, and so you're like, well, okay, they're talking about this snow thing. So Wednesday I wake up, and sure enough, I had been approved, and at that point I do get excited, but I'm also like apprehensive a little bit because there's this storm. So my family didn't want me to travel in my vehicle, so I was going to drive a family member's, and it needed to go to the shop. I also needed to get my hair done, girly stuff that needed to be done. Get my hair done, get my eyebrows waxed, things of that nature. So Friday was the day all that was scheduled. I'm up early. I'm up at 5 o'clock. I've got the vehicle at the shop by 7 as they want me to. My hair appointment is at 11. I have, my handy-dandy laptop with me, and so I'm at my sister's house checking the weather. I'm on North Carolina's road website. I'm on the government National Weather Service website. I'm on Twitter, I'm paying attention to, because it had already it had hit North Carolina Thursday evening, and again, this is Friday morning. So
about 9 o'clock, 9:30, somewhere around that area, Central Time. I get a phone call and it's the shop, and I'm like, wow, are they done yet? That's weird, you know. Well, pick up, hello, you know, and dude is like, yo, you want to come get this, or we want us to lock it up? We're going home. I'm like, what? He's like, it's snowing out. The snow is hit. It's snowing out. We've got guys who live out in the country, and I live in a small area now. And so I'm like, okay, can you give me 5 minutes? Let me call you back and stuff. And he's like, yeah, sure, okay. So I'm getting up, and I walk to the back door, and I open the back door and look out on their back deck, and sure enough, the blizzard has struck, and it's huge snowflakes, and there's already probably about a half an inch, somewhere between a half an inch to an inch. The snowflakes were so big, it did not take very much time for it to start, and it had been cold, so it didn't take much time for it to stick and start to cover the ground and the roads and stuff. And so I call him back, and I'm like, I'm coming to pick it up. And so go to pick it up, and by the time we get on the road and get headed toward home, there's probably an inch and a half, maybe 2 inches. It's that serious of a snowstorm. I'm like, well, you know what? I might not be able. And so I had left out an important detail. After I got off the phone with the shop, I called my hairdresser, and she's like, I've been trying to get in touch with you. I tried to make it to the shop. I can't make it, so we're gonna have to reschedule. I'm like, okay, that's fine. No worries. I'll call you next week. We'll do all of that. So we're headed home, and there's nothing. 10 minutes from my sister's house. There's hardly anything. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to go to the store first, you know, of course that's what you do when there's a possibility of snow, right? You go to the store and you buy up all the bread and milk. So I go to the store, and while I'm in there, I'm like, you know what? Just in case, because there's no snow here, I'm going to do my own hair. So I get the stuff to do my own hair, and I stock up on, you know, the things that we need, and I go home, and by the time I'm headed home, it's really snowing where I am. As I'm headed home, it's really starting to come down. So I'm like, bummer. You know, I probably won't get to go. Probably won't make it. You know, I know it's bad in North Carolina. It's starting to get bad here. So I wake up Saturday morning, and sure enough, there's like 3.5 inches, maybe 4 inches in drift on the ground. And again, I live in a very rural area, and even though I know that, you know, the road crews and stuff are going to be diligently working on main roads, the big issue for me is getting out. Our driveway is a mess. It's a nightmare to get out when the weather's bad. And so I'm like, well, but as the morning goes on, the sun's trying to come out, and I'm, you know, talking to people on social media and whatnot, and Knoxville doesn't have anything, and they're clearing the roads in North Carolina. I'm like, well, you know, I could get as far as, you know, I could get to Knoxville. That's like 2 hours off the trip, you know, a little past Knoxville, and I'll be fine. I can stay the night, and then, you know, drive into, surely they'll be working on the roads, and I drive into to North Carolina Sunday morning, and that'll be an easier trip than trying to do it all at once. So I do my hair, and I actually did a good job to give myself some props, pat myself on the back. So about 1:30, I had already loaded a bunch of stuff in the truck that we were going to take, and so I'm on the road by 2 o'clock and got through the messy part, the rural area part, and I'm on the major highways, and there is a lot of snow around, but the road crews had done a good job of clearing the major highways and interstates. I-40 was a dream. And so I get to Knoxville, and sure enough, Knoxville, that area of East Tennessee, doesn't have very much snow at all. And so I'm like, okay, well, you know, hey. And I made great time, you know, wasn't traveling fast, just, you know, taking my time, but, you know, making good time. And so I was like, well, I'll get as far as I can. I would love to get to Asheville, but, you know, might not be able to. So we'll see how this goes. And so a little past Knoxville, right outside of Sevierville, the Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area, it starts. You're starting to see more snow. It starts snowing. It's just a little bit at this point, and I'm like, well, okay, I'll go a little bit further. And right at Sevierville, I was like, we should stop. We need to stop, and this would be a good breaking point and whatever. But decided to press on. Mistake, huge mistake, because we hit Maggie Valley and it was a blizzard. It was snowing so hard. Visibility was extremely low. There's snow all over the ground. Traffic was down to 35 miles an hour, and you were pushing it. You 30, 35. That was the most that you could go. Really, there was only one lane open. The other lane was blocked. It probably had, I would say, because it looked like they had cleared it, but it had snowed again. And it probably had 3 inches on that side. So you couldn't go on the left hand lane. You had to stay in the right hand lane. So we're going slow. The flashers are on, and I'm like, just let us get to a place where we can stop. And there's a hotel room, because there's nothing in Maggie Valley. I had been to Maggie Valley before on a skiing trip, and there's nothing there. We passed one. There's a rest area. We passed one exit where there was only an RV parking, RV area to spend the night. So we get to Canton and pull off, and there's a Days Inn there. Well, dude doesn't want me to stay there, and he keeps telling me it's because of the rooms, but it comes to find out, it seems pretty clear that he's concerned about my safety. So get to Asheville, and Asheville is fairly clear. He had sent me to this one particular exit to find a place, and it was great. I found a room, and they were wonderful. Everybody there was extremely good to me, and it was a great stopping place. So I get on the road the next morning, and some interesting interactions at a local gas station there. If you follow me on Twitter, you know a little bit about that. And so I get back on the road, and I run through a little bit more snow, not much, but a little bit. We get to Charlotte in good time. I have to wait to get my hotel room. So I'm exploring a little bit. I'm hoping to meet up with some people, but the way I wanted to get to the stadium in plenty of time to to get settled in and what have you. So I opted. There's the media shuttle that I could have taken, but I'm like, if I have to travel from point A to point B to get the shuttle, I might as well travel from point A to point B to the stadium. Not make multiple trips, just make this one trip. So I made accommodations for travel to and from the stadium. More on that later. And finally get checked in and start writing the things that I needed to write for covering the event. And so I was like, I should probably go ahead and head to the stadium. It's a good time to head, get there in plenty of time, get settled in and stuff. And so I did. And as I'm trying to find the place where you go to check in and get your media credentials and what have you, I'm asking some Panthers, and every single one of them is like, oh, you can't take that bag, because I've got my laptop and my electronics that I need to cover the game. And I'm like, well, I've never had this issue before. Maybe they'll have different requirements at where I'm going. And so I get to where I'm checking. Sure enough, they did, and they were very kind. They they had to check my bags and everything and tag them. And I get to the press box, and I'm looking for my name on the the seating chart, and it's not there. So I have to go to the PR people, who are wonderful, and so they were so kind, and they helped me find my spot, and I got settled in. I got an opportunity. I had seen the score of the AFC championship game. I didn't get an opportunity to really pay that much attention to the first half, but I did get to pay attention to the second half, so that was cool. The Panther Stadium is awesome. It is amazing. So I get settled in, and I'm finishing up the one article that I had started, I get it filed, and I'm watching the game. I'm taking some pictures. I'm posting things and doing what you do when you cover an event like this. And so then the game started, and the atmosphere, it was predominantly Panthers fans, of course. There were some Cardinals fans there, not very many though. I estimated that I saw, and I was looking around the stadium. I had my binoculars and I was checking it out. You're trying to get a sense. I saw maybe 100 Cardinals fans there. It was that much Panther fan dominated, which you would expect. Home field advantage, home stadium, and once the game got out of hand, the Panthers pretty handily in the second half. I had an opportunity to watch the fans, to really observe the game day experience. Of course, it was game night, but you know what I mean, the fan experience. And I came away extremely impressed with the Panthers game fan experience. I watched their fans. Their fans were great. No one was sitting down. It reminded me, and I said this on the show that I do with Zach Law, Going for Two with Zach and Sharona. It very much reminded me of how it was in the early days at Adelphia Stadium, Adelphia Coliseum, when the Titans were good and when the fan experience was good, and when it was enjoyable to go to a game at their stadium. It hasn't been like that in several years. But it did very much remind me of that, and it was awesome to watch that. Carolina Panther fans are great. I have not had one single solitary bad experience with them. I've had an opportunity to interact with a great many of them on social media. I was hoping to meet up with some of them. It just didn't happen. I was hoping to meet up with my girl Vashti. We exchanged text messages. We couldn't make that happen. It was such a quick trip for me. I had to turn around and come back on Monday. Hopefully I'll get an opportunity to go back to Charlotte, because it does seem like a nice city. I got a chance to drive around a little bit in the area where I was staying before the game, before I was able to check in. So I really have to compliment the North Carolina Department of Transportation. The roads, once you got past Maggie Valley, and I understand. I mean, they were going through. There was still a winter weather watch. A winter weather storm was still going on when I drove through instead of stopping at Sevierville like I should have. But overall, the roads were wonderful. They were clear, once you got past that point, and Charlotte seemed like a great city. Everyone that I dealt with the Panthers was fantastic. Nothing but good things to say about that. And everybody that I was around and interacted with in the press box at Bank of America Stadium was wonderful too. And so it was a great experience, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks again to Melissa for that, and I look forward to covering the NFL draft. And before I forget, I have to say this. I had an opportunity to watch the Carolina Panthers sideline. The press box was situated to where you had a great view of that, and again, I had my binoculars. I posted this on social media. Cam Newton gets a lot of hate, a lot of it with racial overtones, a lot of it with get off my lawn mentality. I watched a little bit of him. I didn't get to watch. I don't have a large sample size, but I did see him interacting with teammates and having fun, and that's what it's all about. This is football. It should be about fun. You should be out there having fun. The Carolina Panthers bench was really fun to watch. The players seemed to interact very well. There was a great camaraderie there. Ron Rivera and Dave Gettleman have done a fantastic job assembling that team and putting together a team with a winning mentality, with a championship mentality, but also with a family mentality. A family in that they interact well. They seem to all get along very well. They obviously respect one another, and they're out there having fun. And it's going to be very hard for, I think, for the Denver Broncos to, to stop them. We'll see how that goes. We'll have more on that matchup next week, particularly in our Super Bowl show. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap it up. You are listening to Bat Talk with Sharona, so stay tuned in. That's it for today. Once again, shout out to my friend Mike at Excalibur on Twitter for joining me in Hour 1. It was a great chat with him. Hopefully next time we'll get to sit down and chat for hours like I wanted to. Also to Jess Root from Revenge of the Birds, great SB Nation website devoted to the Arizona Cardinals, for joining me in Hour 2. Always a pleasure to chat with Jess. Hope you enjoyed the final word, my encapsulation of my opportunity to cover the NFC Championship game. Next week, as I mentioned before, Jason Hirschhorn, who covers the Green Bay Packers, will be joining me for a chat on the Packers. I'm also going to have a chance to sit down and talk to my boo's husband, Greg Greenfield. I'm going to ask him how he feels about his wifey having a side boo. We're going to talk some gaming and a lot of other different things. Excited to chat with him as well. And then on Friday, I don't know if we'll do a show on Wednesday or not. That show with Greg and Jason will air hopefully on Monday. We may take Wednesday off, but on Friday, the Super Bowl preview show with Jennifer Eakins and my girl Vasti. Very excited about that. You'll have an opportunity to listen to that, and then I'll be posting our video chat of that panel discussion on my YouTube page. Be sure to transcribe to it, Sharona Sports. Thanks again for joining me. You've been listening to Bat Talk with Sharona. I am your host. My name is Sharona. You can follow me out there in Twitter sphere at Sports by Sharona. Be sure to check out my website, Bat Talk with Sharona, and also check out the articles that I wrote regarding the NFC Championship game over at Pro Player Insiders. Also check out my Tuesday night webcast with Sonia Greenfield and my other NFL female sisters, The Zone Blitz by NFL Female, as well as my typically Wednesday night show we aired on Thursday night. This week show with Zach Law, Going for Two with Zach and Sharona. Last night we were joined by one of my NFL female sisters, Tracy McCartney, joined us last night. It was a great chat with her. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Have a great weekend, and thanks for listening.